She looked away for just 2 seconds, and in that moment, her 5-year-old son vanished without a sound. For 20 years, she searched. She held on to hope when no one else did, not a trace, not a clue. Until one day, in a different city, on a quiet street corner, she saw a face on a church flyer, and everything stopped. Before we dive in, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It was supposed to be a perfect day. The kind of warm summer Saturday when everything smelled like popcorn, sunscreen, and cotton candy. The fair had rolled into Boise, Idaho, like it did every July, and for Emily Simmons, that particular day in 2005 was meant to be about laughter, sticky fingers, and the sound of carousel music echoing through the breeze. She still remembered the way Caleb's small hand felt in hers, warm, wiggly, impatient. He had just turned 5 a week earlier and hadn't stopped talking about the bumper cars since breakfast. Daniel had teased him, calling him Crash Commander, and Emily had packed his favorite juice box in her purse, just in case. The fairgrounds were already buzzing when they arrived. The air trembled with the hum of rides, barkers shouting prizes, kids screaming in delight or fear. Emily tried to take it all in, the colors and smells, but most of her attention was on Caleb. He was wearing his little red baseball cap and his Spider-Man sneakers, and he kept tugging at her hand, trying to pull her toward the games. That cap. She could still see it so clearly in her mind years later. It would haunt her in ways she couldn't have imagined. The first ride they tried was the carousel. Emily remembered the way Caleb giggled, high and bright, as he rode the zebra instead of the horse, because, as he told them, zebras are cooler. Daniel took a photo with a disposable Kodak camera. Caleb's mismatched eyes, one a deep ocean blue, the other a rare honey brown, sparkled in the sunlight. That photograph would become the last one they'd ever take of their son. It happened in seconds. The kind of moment you replay endlessly, searching for the thing you missed, the mistake, the wrong turn. They were by the lemonade stand. Daniel had bent down to tie his shoe. Emily turned to grab a napkin. Caleb was there, and then he wasn't. No scream, no sign of struggle, no sound, just gone. Emily shouted first. Daniel stood, confused. "He was right here," she kept saying, over and over. They checked behind the stand, ran toward the carousel, called his name, until their voices cracked. Nothing. The security guards told them it wasn't uncommon for kids to wander. But by the first hour, panic had rooted itself deep in Emily's chest. It felt like drowning, slow, painful, unreal. The police were called. An amber alert went out. The fairgrounds were searched, interviews conducted, witnesses questioned. No one saw a thing. No one had noticed a child with mismatched eyes, even though Emily kept repeating it like a prayer. One blue, one honey, one blue, one honey. By nightfall, the lights of the fair still blinked in cheerful rhythms. But for the Simmons family, everything had gone dark. Years passed, slowly, torturously. Daniel built walls. Emily tore hers down. He stopped talking about Caleb after the first year. Emily never did. She started keeping a journal, one entry each day, always addressed to Caleb. Today I made spaghetti. You used to love spaghetti. Today I smelled sunscreen and I remembered your cheeks peeling after the lake. Today I didn't cry. I almost smiled. I'm sorry. Their home became a shrine of quiet hope and painful memory. The mural in the hallway, originally meant for family photos, became a place of timelines, maps, newspaper clippings, missing persons posters, Emily's obsession. Neighbors stopped visiting. Friends drifted away. But Emily kept searching. Online forums, volunteer groups. She learned the lingo, non-familial abduction, child trafficking risk zones, the age progression software. The police gave up. She didn't. Then, one cold morning, almost 20 years later, Emily found herself in Spokane, Washington. It was winter, February. She had traveled up to help her sister, Meredith, after a small surgery. The snow there was heavier than in Boise, thick and unrelenting, blanketing the roads and dampening sound. Emily liked it. It was quiet, gentle. She had gone out to get groceries and was walking back to the car when she passed a small wooden church on a corner. Nothing special, white steeple, peeling paint, a rusted bell. A hand-painted sign outside read, "Open Arms Youth Ministry, Sunday at 7 p.m. There was a bulletin board beside the door, flyers, posters, prayer requests. Emily barely glanced at it until something stopped her. It wasn't the headline. It was the eyes. 2 eyes, one blue, one honey brown. She felt her legs give way. Her breath left her body so fast it felt like being punched. She stared. The flyer wasn't even about missing persons. It was a promotional piece, an invitation. Come meet Tyler, one of our brightest youth mentors. Sunday service, open to all. There was a photo, a close-up, a young man, maybe in his early 20s, smiling, gentle, thin face, shaggy brown hair, warm expression. But it was the eyes. God, the eyes. Emily couldn't move, couldn't think. The snow fell around her silently, like ash. A car honked in the distance. A dog barked from somewhere behind the church. She stepped closer, hands trembling. Took out her phone, snapped a picture, took another, and another. The young man was grown, yes, but something about the jawline, the shape of his smile, and the eyes. She whispered, "Caleb?" A man emerged from the church carrying a plastic bag. He was middle-aged, heavy-set, with a kind smile. He paused when he saw her. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked. Emily turned, eyes wide. "That boy," she pointed. "On the flyer. Tyler. Who is he?" The man looked at her, confused. "Oh, Tyler. He helps out here. Good kid. Works with the teens. Why?" Emily couldn't breathe. "Is he adopted?" The man shrugged. "I think so. Pastor Clark might know more. He's the one who brought him in a while back." Emily blinked. "A while back?" "Yeah, years now. Tyler's been here since he was about 15. Came in quiet, didn't say much about his past. Pastor said he was from somewhere down south, maybe Utah. Not sure. Why?" She stared at the photo again. "Because I think he's my son." The man took a step back. "Oh," she shook her head. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. It's just the eyes. My son went missing 20 years ago, and I swear to you, those are his eyes." The man looked at her for a long time. Then he said softly, "You should talk to Pastor Clark." Emily didn't sleep that night. She barely spoke to Meredith over dinner. Her mind raced. Could it be? After all these years? She didn't want to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope had betrayed her before. But those eyes, she had dreamed of them, prayed for them, seen them in strangers, crowds, nightmares. The next morning she returned to the church before sunrise. The parking lot was empty. Snow crunched beneath her boots. She waited on the steps until a figure appeared. Tall, thin, gray coat. A man in his 60s with kind eyes and tired shoulders. "Pastor Clark," she asked. He stopped. "Yes?" "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice breaking. "It's about a boy named Tyler." The pastor studied her. "You're the woman from yesterday, aren't you?" "Yes," he nodded slowly. "Come inside." The sanctuary was quiet, smelled of old wood, wax, and something faintly herbal, maybe tea. He led her to a small room behind the altar, a desk, 2 chairs, a bookshelf of worn Bibles. He closed the door. "I think," she said, sitting carefully, "that Tyler might be my son." There was a pause. Then he said, "You're not the first person to say something like that." Emily's heart sank. "I'm not," he shook his head. "Not exactly like that, no, but Tyler's past is a mystery, even to him. He showed up here one night, no ID, just a torn backpack and bruises. He was scared, wouldn't speak for weeks. When he finally did, he said he didn't remember much. Said he grew up in a house with blue walls and a lady who smelled like cinnamon. Emily's lips trembled. We had blue walls in our kitchen, and I used to bake cinnamon bread every Friday. The pastor didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, he stood and opened a drawer, pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a photograph, torn at the edges, faded, but clearly the same image Emily remembered, the last photo from the carousel. Her voice cracked. "Where did he get this?" The pastor looked down. "He said it came from the backpack he had when he arrived. Said he didn't know who the people were. Said it gave him nightmares." Emily's world began to tilt. Everything she had held together for years started to crumble. Her son wasn't dead. He was here, alive. And yet, he didn't remember her. She stared at the photo. "He has heterochromia. His eyes." "Yes," the pastor nodded. "It's rare. Striking, really." She stood, clutching the photo. "I need to see him." The pastor hesitated. "He doesn't know who he is. If you come too strong, if this is wrong, you could hurt him." "I understand," she said. "But if it's right," he nodded. "He's coming later today for youth choir. If you want, you can stay. But maybe just observe. For now." Emily didn't argue. She sat in the sanctuary for hours, watching the light move through stained glass. She prayed, though she wasn't sure how. Her fingers curled around the photo like it might disappear again. Then, just before sunset, the door opened, and a voice echoed through the church. "Hey, Pastor, you needed me?" Emily turned. He was taller now, slim, confident in the way he walked. But the smile was exactly the same. She stared at him. He froze, their eyes locked, one blue, one honey. He tilted his head. "Do I know you?" Emily's breath caught in her throat, and the world stopped moving. Emily Simmons hadn't changed the layout of Caleb's room since the day he vanished. The wallpaper was still pale blue, dotted with faded stars. His small twin bed remained neatly made, the dinosaur blanket pulled tight. On the nightstand sat a cracked lava lamp, the red wax inside hardened from years of disuse. His favorite stuffed elephant, Nino, rested beside the pillow, missing one button eye. Everything in that room had been preserved like an exhibit frozen in time. Some called it denial. Emily called it devotion. For 2 decades she refused to let go of her son, not just the hope of his return, but the tactile reality of him, his scent, his toys, his drawings on the wall. The height chart on the closet frame stopped abruptly at 5 years went to one momai. And beneath it, scrawled in faint marker, were the words Caleb wrote himself, "I'm going to be big." Emily read that sentence every morning. She would open the door, step in, inhale deeply, and whisper, "You are big, baby. Somewhere, you're big." Before Caleb disappeared, Emily had been known in the neighborhood as the sweet, soft-spoken elementary teacher who made cookies for every PTA meeting and never forgot a student's birthday. She had this warmth to her, a natural softness that made even the most anxious child feel safe. But the day she lost her son, something broke open inside her. She didn't cry like people expected, not at first. Instead, she became frighteningly focused. In the days that followed the fair, while others brought casseroles and condolences, Emily sat with a notebook, transcribing every detail she could remember. The color of Caleb's socks, the exact time he asked for lemonade, the number of steps from the carousel to the game tent. It became an obsession, a desperate attempt to wrestle back control from a world that had spun violently out of it. Her husband Daniel coped differently. For the first few months, they cried together. They held hands during news interviews, clutched each other during police briefings. But eventually, the silence between them grew too heavy to hold. He couldn't stand the sight of the empty chair at the dinner table or the way Emily continued to set a plate for Caleb every night. He tried therapy, but Emily refused. She didn't want someone to accept her pain. She wanted her son back. By year 3, Daniel moved out, not because he stopped loving Emily, but because staying meant drowning. He left her the house, said he needed space to breathe. Emily understood. And she let him go. She never remarried, never even dated. Her days became ritualistic. She woke at 6 a.m., made black coffee, read Psalm 91 aloud. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. And then she sat in Caleb's room, whispering updates into the silence. Then came the wall. The back hallway of their Boise home had once been lined with framed vacation photos. Disneyland, Yellowstone, a pumpkin patch outside Pocatello. One by one those frames were removed. In their place, Emily began pinning things. A missing persons poster, a printout of security footage from the fair, maps with red pushpins. She had a drawer full of FOIA requests, tips from anonymous online users, even a crayon sketch someone claimed was seen in a dream. Some of it bordered on the absurd, but Emily never discounted anything. Because what if that absurd detail was the key? What if she threw away the one clue that mattered? She subscribed to message boards, listened to podcasts about cold cases, and learned how to navigate the dark web just enough to scan illegal databases for clues. She became a woman transformed, not obsessed, but sharpened. Her grief had shaped her into something else, not broken, just redefined. The community didn't understand. Neighbors whispered. Some crossed the street to avoid awkward conversations. Others tried to help, bringing baked goods or offering condolences, but the truth was, no one knew what to say anymore. What do you say to a mother whose child has been gone for 20 years and who still hangs birthday balloons on the mailbox every July 12th? Only one person never judged her, Meredith. Emily's older sister was her rock, loud where Emily was quiet, fierce where Emily was gentle. She lived 4 hours away in Spokane, and despite battling her own autoimmune condition, she called every single day. You need to sleep, she'd often say. You need to eat, she'd plead. You need to accept what might be true, she'd whisper. But Emily never could. She believed Caleb was alive, somewhere. She felt it in her bones, the kind of mother's intuition that defied logic. It wasn't just hope, it was knowing. Caleb had been a bright, gentle child. At 5, he loved puzzles and hated peanut butter. He couldn't whistle, but insisted on trying every morning. He'd line up his toy cars by color and tell stories aloud while he played. Most memorably, he had those eyes. One was a piercing, vivid blue, the kind that caught the light and seemed to shimmer. The other, a golden brown, like sunlit honey. It was called complete heterochromia. Doctors said it was rare but harmless. To Emily, it had been a divine signature. "You're special," she used to whisper, brushing his hair behind his ear. "You're 1 in a million." Caleb would giggle. "I'm 1 in 2 million." After he vanished, Emily clung to those eyes. They were the thing she asked every officer to look for, the detail she included in every online post. Most kids who disappeared were never found. But Caleb wasn't most kids. He had a marker, a detail, a beacon. In the rare times she allowed herself to imagine a reunion, it always began the same way. She'd see his eyes in a crowd, and he'd stop and turn and recognize her. She never expected it to happen on a flyer, and certainly not in a city that wasn't even on her radar. When she arrived in Spokane to help Meredith with her post-op recovery, Emily had packed light, 1 duffel bag, a small suitcase, her journal. She hadn't even brought her laptop. The week was supposed to be about caregiving, Grocery shopping, rest, maybe even a moment away from the wall. But even away from Boise, she wasn't really free. She still dreamt of fairgrounds, still jumped at the sound of carousel music, still saw red baseball caps in every crowd. She wasn't broken. She was simply attuned, always listening, always scanning. The day she saw the flyer, her mind instantly reverted to instinct. First, she took photos. Then she did a reverse image search on her phone. No matches. Then she looked up the church's website. Sparse, outdated. But there was a contact form and a photo gallery. And there he was again, in the background of a group picture, smiling, leaning into a girl with bright pink braids, his eyes slightly squinted, his smile crooked, just like Caleb's used to be when he was nervous. She stared at the screen until her battery died. The rest of that night was a blur. Meredith noticed something was off, but didn't push. Emily was too jittery to speak clearly. She excused herself early, claiming a migraine, and retreated to the guest room. There, under a too-soft blanket and surrounded by pastel wallpaper, she pulled out her journal. She hadn't written to Caleb in months. The last entry had been after a failed tip in Arizona. Another boy with similar eyes, later confirmed through DNA not to be her son. But now her pen trembled as she wrote, "I saw your eyes today. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I can hope again, but I'm coming, baby. If it's you, I'll find you." The next morning, as she sat on the church steps waiting for Pastor Clark, Emily's thoughts drifted to the carousel, to that last day. She remembered how Caleb had asked for a balloon before they left, a green one, but the vendor had run out, so he settled for yellow. He was holding it when he vanished. The balloon was found hours later, deflated, under the bleachers near the exit. A security guard told her it could have floated there. But Emily always believed it was placed, like a clue. She'd dreamed of that yellow balloon dozens of times. In the dreams it floated upward, disappearing into a sky that turned from blue to black, and she'd chase it, running, until her lungs gave out. She always woke up before she caught it. But today felt different. Today she'd seen something tangible, not a memory, not a dream, a face, a flyer. And now, sitting in that sanctuary, waiting for a boy with mismatched eyes to walk through the door, she felt something strange stirring in her chest, not fear, not even hope, but certainty. He's alive. Emily didn't expect him to remember. Not right away. When Tyler walked into the church that evening, her heart stopped. Not because she was certain, she wasn't, but because something in her knew, the curve of his chin, the way he shifted his weight between feet. The slight hesitation in his eyes when he saw her, but he didn't say, "Mom," he said, "Do I know you?" The words hit like glass cracking beneath the surface. Emily smiled softly. "No, I don't think so. I'm just visiting." He nodded, polite, guarded. "Okay, cool." Then to Pastor Clark, "You wanted me to help with the folding chairs?" The pastor nodded, throwing a subtle glance at Emily. "Yes. Thank you, Tyler." Tyler moved toward the sanctuary, his shoulders relaxed, but his steps were quick, like a reflex, like someone used to avoiding tension. Emily watched him go. The moment was real. The resemblance was undeniable, but doubt still hung in the air like static. And fear. Fear that she could be wrong again, that the eyes weren't enough, that she was chasing another shadow. She came back the next day, and the next. For 5 straight days, Emily sat in the back pew during youth group rehearsals, choir practice, cleanup hours. She watched Tyler from a distance, took notes. His laugh was different now, deeper, of course, but it still had that slight upward pitch when he got excited. He still chewed the inside of his cheek when he was nervous, and once, when a balloon popped from a decoration setup, he flinched so hard he dropped an entire stack of chairs. Emily didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Because on the 5th day, Tyler came to her. "You're not just visiting, are you?" Emily met his eyes. "No." He sat beside her, leaving a gap. "You keep staring." "I'm sorry." "It's okay," he said. "People do that sometimes." "Because of your eyes." He smiled slightly. "Yeah, I used to hate them. Thought it made me look like a glitch or something. But now, I kind of like it." Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. "You should." There was a long silence. Then he said, "Do you think we've met before?" Emily hesitated. "I don't know." "You feel familiar," he said, "but that happens to me sometimes. I see faces, and I think I know them, but I don't. Or maybe I do. It's confusing." "What do you remember? From before you came here?" He shook his head. "Not much. Bits and pieces. A hallway with a nightlight. Blue walls. The smell of bread. A woman singing." Emily closed her eyes. "Did she smell like cinnamon?" she whispered. Tyler blinked. "Yes." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of Meredith's guest room, the same photo in her hands, Caleb on the carousel, his mismatched eyes wide with joy, his little fingers gripping the zebra's pole. He had been 5. Now this boy was 25. Could trauma steal 20 years of memory? Could the brain lock it all away? She spent hours researching memory repression, childhood amnesia, dissociative identity symptoms. Everything pointed to yes, especially if there had been abuse, fear, or isolation. But she needed more, not just resemblance, not just instinct. She needed proof. 2 days later, Pastor Clark called her. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "If he remembers, it could open a floodgate." Emily's voice was steady. "If he remembers, it could bring him home." The pastor sighed. "Then come." He agreed to talk. The meeting was in the church basement, a room with peeling beige walls, a table, and 3 chairs. Tyler sat across from her, fidgeting with a plastic bottle cap. Emily brought nothing but a small box. "I want to show you something," she said gently. He nodded. She opened the box. Inside was a worn, stuffed elephant. Nino, one eye missing, ears slightly frayed, its gray fur faded to near white from years of clutching. Tyler stared at it. He didn't speak. Then, without warning, he reached out and picked it up, slowly, carefully. "I've seen this," he whispered. "I don't know where. In my dreams, maybe, or—" Emily's heart raced. "It was your favorite, his favorite." Tyler looked up. "Caleb's?" "Yes." He didn't answer. He just stared at the toy, brows furrowed, breath shallow. Then he said, almost to himself, "I had something like this once. I used to sleep holding its trunk." Emily gasped. "You always did." Silence again, and then the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, but slow and undeniable, falling silently down his cheeks. "I don't understand," he said. "Why do I know this?" Emily reached forward, placing her hand over his. "I think because you are Caleb." From that day, everything changed. Tyler didn't deny it, but he didn't accept it either. He said he needed time. He said he was scared. Emily respected that. She didn't push. But every day, she returned, with more objects, more photos, more memories. And every time, he reacted to the green sippy cup with dinosaur stickers, to the VHS tape labeled Caleb's 4th birthday, to the blanket with little yellow cars that he used to drag through the house like a cape. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was recognition. He began having dreams, a blue hallway, a woman crying behind a door, music, carousel music, a red balloon floating away. Meanwhile, Emily began digging into the timeline. If Tyler had arrived at the church at age 15, where had he been the 10 years before that? The pastor didn't know much. He said a woman raised him, not his mother, just called her Mama June, no last name, said she homeschooled him, moved a lot. They lived in trailers, motels, sometimes slept in cars. Emily's stomach turned. What happened to her? Died. Heart failure. In a parking lot of a gas station in Utah. Tyler was found wandering nearby, malnourished. No ID. He was taken in by the state, but he ran away after a few days. Found his way here somehow. And no one ever identified him? No, the pastor said. He had no records, no social, nothing. Emily knew what that meant. Whoever took him kept him hidden, off the grid. She wondered if Mama June had abducted him herself, or if someone else had, and she became his caretaker. Tyler couldn't remember. He said the early years were fuzzy, like static, blurs of color and smell. But one night, while Emily sat with him in silence, he said something that made her freeze. She used to say, "Your real mother didn't want you. She gave you away at a fair." Emily's throat closed. She told me I was broken, that no one would look for me. Tyler agreed to take a DNA test. The results would take weeks. Emily didn't need them, but she understood the importance, for him, for the authorities, for closure. While they waited, Tyler came to Boise. He stood in Caleb's old room, silent. He touched the height chart, the drawings on the wall. "This is mine," he said quietly. Emily nodded, eyes glassy. He held Nino again, this time with no hesitation. Then he looked at her. "I still don't remember everything, but I want to." That night he had his first flashback. He was standing by a lemonade stand, a balloon in one hand, his other hand empty. He looked around, heard laughter, carousel music. He saw a man, tall, wearing sunglasses, crouch and say, "Hey, little buddy, want to see a magic trick?" Then, black. That was all he remembered, but it was enough. Emily filed a police report the next day. The case was reopened. A sketch was made from Tyler's description. Faded photos from the fair in 2005 were re-examined. One showed a man in sunglasses near the lemonade stand, grainy, but there. The theory: he was taken by a stranger, possibly passed through hands. Until he ended up with Mama June. The police believed it. The DNA test confirmed it. Tyler was Caleb, 20 years gone, found. But it wasn't the ending Emily imagined, because Tyler didn't come home, not right away. He said he needed time. His life had been here, in Spokane, with the church, with friends. He wanted to know her, but slowly. Emily accepted that, grateful for the chance, grateful for hope fulfilled, even if imperfectly. But just when things seemed to settle, something else surfaced. Pastor Clark called Emily. "There's something you need to see." It was a letter, found tucked behind a loose board in Tyler's old room at the church. The paper was yellowed, handwritten. It read, "If anyone finds this, my name is Caleb Simmons. I don't know where I am. The lady says I'm not supposed to talk about before, but I remember my mom's voice. I remember the carousel. I want to go home." The date on the paper? 2014. He had written it at age 14, a year before arriving at the church. Emily clutched the letter to her chest. "He tried," she whispered. "He never forgot." The letter changed everything. Emily read it again and again. Each time her hands trembled a little more. "If anyone finds this, my name is Caleb Simmons." He had remembered, not fully, not clearly, but enough to write his real name, to reach out in secret, to hope that someone, someday, might find it. It was a message in a bottle, sealed by a frightened 14-year-old, hidden behind a wall for 9 long years, and no one had seen it, not until now. Emily took the letter straight to the Boise Police Department. The officer at the front desk skimmed it, his brow raising with each line. "You said this came from where?" "A church in Spokane," Emily said, keeping her voice calm. "Tyler, my son, hid it there, years ago." "You're referring to Caleb Simmons?" "Yes." The officer nodded, then stood. "I'll get someone from Missing Persons." 2 days later, she met with Detective Naomi Voss, who had inherited the cold case file years after the original investigation stalled. But to Emily's surprise, Rachel Moreno, the original detective on Caleb's case, walked into the room behind her. She was older now, gray streaks in her hair, deeper lines in her face, but her eyes were sharp, determined. "Mrs. Simmons," Rachel said, extending a hand. "I never stopped thinking about him." Emily nodded, tears already forming. "Neither did I." The investigation resumed like a machine, creaking back to life. Rachel dove into her old files, and together with Naomi, she reconstructed the last known timeline, not of Caleb's disappearance, but of Tyler's emergence, Utah, 2015. An unidentified minor found wandering a parking lot, malnourished, no documents, no birth certificate. Report filed under the alias Tyler June, a name social workers gave him. His caretaker, Mama June Horsey, had been found dead nearby. No next of kin, no records. He was placed in a temporary facility and ran away 3 days later. No follow-up. Case closed as a runaway. How no one had connected him to Caleb Simmons back then remained a painful mystery. But Emily wasn't focused on blame. She was focused on the next clue. Rachel interviewed Tyler, gently. No pressure, just questions. She had always been good with kids, and now, with the young man sitting in front of her, she used the same careful, maternal tone. "What's the first home you remember?" "A trailer. It was cold, had green curtains." "Did you move a lot?" Tyler nodded. "I remember always packing. She'd say, 'Don't leave anything behind. They'll find you.'" "Did she ever talk about your real parents?" He hesitated. "Once. She was drunk. She said my mom gave me away like a dog at the fair. Then she cried." Rachel took notes. "Do you remember anything else? Any names? People?" Tyler blinked, then said something unexpected. "There was a man. He visited sometimes. He wore a hat. He brought food and envelopes." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Envelopes?" Tyler nodded. "White, with writing." "Do you remember his name?" A pause, then, "Lenny. Or Larry, I think, maybe. Uncle Larry?" Rachel's face changed. Emily saw it. "You know someone by that name," Emily said quietly. Rachel didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her file and flipped to a page. "There was a vendor," she murmured, "from the fair, worked a hot dog stand. His name was Leonard Wallace, but some staff called him Uncle Larry." Emily's heart pounded. Was he ever questioned? "Briefly. He had an alibi. Said he was in the vendor's tent when Caleb disappeared, but he was flagged for something else, too." Rachel slid over a document. A background check. Leonard Wallace had a prior conviction. Child endangerment, 1991. Charges dropped. "Why didn't you follow up?" Emily asked. Rachel shook her head, frustrated. "We did, but the department lacked resources. He disappeared after the fair season ended. Never resurfaced under the same name." Emily whispered, "Could he have taken Caleb?" Rachel frowned. "If he did, he likely passed him on to someone else, someone like Mama June." The search intensified. They dug into Leonard Wallace's past, tracked down old fair employees, scanned news clippings, arrest records, vendor license applications. Then they found something. 2010. Missoula, Montana. A woman named June Ellen Hartley was arrested for petty theft. In the police report, she listed a man named L. Wallace as her boyfriend. The case was dismissed, but it placed Mama June and Leonard in the same town at the same time. Rachel closed the file slowly. "He handed Caleb off," she said, "to her." Emily sat outside the station in her car, staring at the sky. Tyler, Caleb, had lived an entire second life, and it had started with a stranger at a fair, a man no one suspected, A man who served hot dogs and smiled for families, who vanished after the chaos. She imagined it. Caleb walking, lost, crying, this man kneeling. "It's okay, buddy, I'll help you." The lure of safety, the betrayal that followed. Emily gripped the steering wheel and cried. Meanwhile, Tyler began remembering more, not scenes, but feelings, fear, hiding. Whispers through motel walls, waking up alone, being told he couldn't play outside, and music, always music. He told Emily about it one night. There was a box. It played carousel music over and over. It made me feel sick. Emily froze. "Do you remember where it was?" "A closet," he said, "with red carpet. The music played all night." Emily didn't speak. She remembered the red carpet. It was in a motel they had stayed at once, on a family trip to Oregon. Caleb had hated it. Said it looked like spilled ketchup. Rachel and Naomi followed the lead. There were only a few motels in Utah and Montana with that specific carpet style. They found one. Old Pines Inn, shut down in 2016. Abandoned. They got a warrant. The inside was moldy, rotted, but in one room, behind a cracked panel wall, they found a box. Inside, an old music box, carousel-themed, broken, dusty, and beneath it, a photograph of a boy. Mismatched eyes, smiling, wearing a Spider-Man shirt. Emily collapsed when she saw it. That night, Meredith sat beside her on the porch. "You found him," she said gently. Emily nodded. "But I didn't save him." Meredith touched her hand. "You did now." Tyler agreed to go public. With guidance, the family gave an interview, carefully, without naming Leonard Wallace, but confirming that Caleb had been found. The news swept across Idaho. The boy who vanished in 2005 was alive in 2025, a miracle, a mystery, a reunion 2 decades in the making. But it came with a cost, because someone had known more and kept it quiet. The anonymous tip came on a Sunday night, a voicemail left on Rachel's private phone, a man's voice, hoarse, shaky. "You're looking for Leonard Wallace. I knew him. I knew what he did. I told someone a long time ago, but they told me to shut up, that it wasn't my business. It was someone from the fair. Management, they covered it up. Look into the name Glenn Hendricks. He knew. He always knew." Foilem. Rachel played it for Emily the next day. Glenn Hendricks. He had been the fairgrounds manager in 2005, retired now, living outside Nampa. Emily whispered, "He was there, the day Caleb vanished." Rachel nodded, and he might have lied to us all. Rachel Moreno hadn't done this in years. The drive to Nampa was quiet, the Idaho landscape passing in slow stretches of beige and gray. The last time she'd spoken to Glenn Hendricks had been in a crowded, echoing office at the edge of the Boise Fairgrounds, 2 days after Caleb disappeared. He'd been dismissive, polished, professional. Now, 20 years later, she was knocking on the door of a man who had every reason to hope she'd never come back. The house was modest, tucked behind a rusted gate, the yard overgrown. A wind chime clinked above the porch, the only sound besides the winter breeze. When Glenn opened the door, his eyes narrowed. "I thought you were retired," he muttered. Rachel smiled coldly. "I thought you were honest." Inside, the house smelled like dust and microwaved soup. Glenn moved slowly, older than she remembered, but still sharp, still evasive. "You said you had something to ask," he said, settling into a worn recliner. Rachel didn't waste time. "Leonard Wallace, also known as Uncle Larry. You vouched for him, personally, back in 2005. Glenn looked away. "So? So you knew about his history, the endangerment charge in Montana. You told the department it was a mistake? That he was clean?" Glenn shrugged. "It was none of my business." Rachel leaned forward. "You knew, and you let him work around children." Silence. Then Glenn whispered, "I was told to." "By who?" By the board, the fair committee, Leonard had connections. He ran cheap booths, made money. They said, "Don't stir the pot." Rachel's voice was ice. "A boy disappeared, Glenn." He didn't look up. "I didn't know it would happen. I didn't—" "You covered it up." His eyes finally met hers. "I was afraid. If word got out, we'd lose contracts. We'd lose the fair. It was political." Rachel stood, trembling. It was criminal. Rachel brought the confession to Naomi Voss that night. They reopened records, sought statements, verified Glenn's admission, but the Reviravolta hadn't even begun. Because 3 days later, Emily received a package from someone in her own family. The envelope was beige, no return address. Inside was a single letter, folded carefully. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Daniel, her ex-husband, the man who had left her 15 years ago, unable to live inside the silence and sorrow. She hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. But now, his words trembled off the page. "Emily, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep this buried anymore. I should have told you years ago, but I was afraid you'd hate me. Or worse, that it would break you completely. A few months after Caleb disappeared, I got a letter. No return address? Inside was a Polaroid photo, a blurry image of a boy. He was standing in front of a trailer. He looked like Caleb. Not exactly, but close. I didn't show you. I thought it was a sick prank. I thought it would only give you false hope. Then I got a second letter. It said, 'He's alive. Forget the fair. You were warned.' I went to the police. But when I showed them the letters, they told me they couldn't confirm anything. No fingerprints, no DNA. I asked them not to tell you. I convinced myself it was to protect you. The truth is, I couldn't handle another dead end. I've kept those letters all these years. I'm sending them to you now. I'm sorry." Emily's knees gave out. She fell to the floor. The envelope contained both letters and the Polaroid. A young boy, mismatched eyes, Spider-Man shirt. Standing in front of a beige trailer, behind him, a figure blurred by motion, unrecognizable, but there. Rachel took the materials into evidence immediately. It changed the scope of the investigation. Someone, not just Leonard Wallace or Mama June, had been involved in keeping Caleb hidden, and they had threatened the family. They had eyes on the Simmonses long after the abduction, which meant it wasn't just a kidnapping, it was a system. Tyler, now fully aware he was Caleb, asked to revisit the fairgrounds. It had been rebuilt, modernized, but some structures still stood: the carousel, the lemonade stand space, the outer perimeter where the vendor tents had once lined up. He walked slowly, Emily by his side, Rachel and Naomi keeping their distance. When he reached the spot near the lemonade stand, he stopped. Then he pointed. "There, that's where he talked to me." Emily's voice cracked. "Leonard?" Tyler nodded. "He said he lost his dog. He asked if I could help him look. I said I needed to ask my mom. But he said it would only take a second." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "He took my hand. I don't remember screaming. I think he pressed something to my neck, like something sharp." Rachel and Naomi exchanged a glance. Sedative, quick, clean. That was why no one had heard a thing. Tyler was unconscious before he could yell. 2 weeks later, a breakthrough. DNA from the envelope Daniel had kept matched saliva on a paper scrap found in an old vendor contract, signed under a fake name in 2005. The signature? L. Wallace. The connection was made, but Wallace was gone. No trace, no bank accounts, no death certificate. Dead or hiding. And then the second Reviravolta. Meredith called Emily in tears. She had been cleaning their childhood home, a cabin their father once owned near McCall, and found an old box labeled Emily Personal. Inside were toys, photos, and a notebook from 1994. But something else was taped to the lid. A card, an appointment reminder, Boise Family Services, 2004. Name, June Hartley. Emily stared at it. Her jaw dropped. Meredith, she whispered. Why would that name be in our father's house? Meredith paused. Dad used to rent the basement apartment, remember, in the early 2000s. Emily's hands shook. Are you saying Mama June lived under our father's house? Rachel launched a background trace. Records confirmed it. June Hartley lived at the Simmons family cabin from 2003 to 2004. She listed herself as domestic staff. No background checks were run. And the address? 5 blocks from the Simmons home in Boise. She had watched them. She knew them. She knew Caleb. This wasn't a random abduction. It was targeted. Emily broke down. All this time she believed Caleb had vanished in a moment of chance, a freak accident, a predator at the fair. But now, the horror sank in. Mama June had known them. She had lived under their father's roof. She had likely seen Caleb at the grocery store, or in the yard, or on the porch. She had planned it. And Leonard Wallace? He was the pickup, the delivery system. They were connected. By money, desperation, or worse. Emily whispered through tears, she stalked us. Tyler Gate, now emotionally stronger, took it all in with an eerie calm. She used to say, he recalled, you were chosen. The world gave you up. I saved you. Emily pressed her hand to his. You were never given up. I know now, he said. But for years, I believed her. His voice dropped. She told me my mom was dead. The press caught wind of the re-emerging investigation, but the Simmons family declined interviews. They wanted justice first, answers, closure. But what they got was another surprise. Naomi received a call from a man in Pocatello. He had worked with June Hartley in 2010. She told me she used to be a birth worker, he said. Helped with home deliveries. Said she used to find babies who needed a better path. Creeped me out. He sent a photo. June, standing beside a child, not Caleb, a different boy, same age, same mismatched eyes. Emily gasped. There's another? The photo didn't lie. He was younger than Tyler, maybe 16 now, but the resemblance was eerie. Same bone structure, same uneven dimples, but it was the eyes again that cut through everything. One was ice blue, the other honey brown. Rachel called it what it was. Heterochromia isn't rare, but 2 boys, both taken by the same woman, both with it, that's not coincidence. That's obsession. The boy's name was unknown. The man who had the photo, a former maintenance worker at a halfway house in Pocatello, said June had brought the boy there once. She said he was her nephew, he explained, sickly, kept him close, homeschooled. Then they vanished one night. The year? 2011. Tyler would have been 11. That meant this other boy, if real, was taken after Caleb. The implications were horrifying. Tyler sat in Emily's kitchen, the photo in his hand. He looks like me, he said, voice thin. Emily touched his shoulder. Because he may have been chosen because of you. Rachel leaned in. We think June was building something, a family of her own, taking boys she thought the world forgot. Your case may have been the beginning. Tyler said nothing, but his fingers trembled. Then he stood and walked outside. Emily followed him. It was cold. The Idaho sky hung low, gray and tired. She found him by the old oak tree, the one Caleb used to climb before dinner. You okay? She asked. Tyler didn't answer right away. I used to think I was abandoned, he said finally, that I wasn't wanted, that I was born wrong. Emily's heart broke. You were taken. I know that now, but knowing and feeling aren't the same. She waited. Then he turned to her, eyes red. She told me once that my mother died in a fire, that no one came looking. I believed her. I hated you for not coming. And now I don't know who I am. Emily stepped closer. You're Caleb, and you're Tyler. Both can exist. He looked at her. "Do you want me to be Caleb again?" She shook her head. "I want you to be who you are. I just want you home." Silence, then, softly, "I think I want that too." Days passed. Rachel and Naomi traced the second boy across state records, but without a name or birth certificate, it was difficult. What they found instead was a journal, recovered from the old Pocatello house where June had once lived. In it, scattered between erratic entries and delusional prayers, were references to the boys. C is mine. He's the first, the chosen. L is quiet. I think he misses her, the one before me. I have to keep them safe. The world is poison. One day, the world will thank me for taking them. Rachel read the journal aloud. Emily sat in stunned silence. She believed it, she whispered. She really believed she was saving them. Tyler stared at the wall. She was sick, he said, but not stupid. She knew what she was doing. Later that week, Daniel came to visit. It was the first time he'd stood on the front porch since he left in 2008. He looked older, fragile in a way Emily hadn't expected. His voice cracked the moment he saw her. "I don't know what to say," he said. "You don't have to say anything," Emily replied, letting the door open wider. They sat in the living room, Caleb's photos on the wall, untouched. Between them, the silence was heavy, but not hostile. "I thought I was protecting you," he said, "by hiding the letters. I told myself you'd fall apart." "I did," Emily said, "but not because of that." Daniel looked down. "I didn't want to believe it was him," he said. "I couldn't take the hope." Emily reached over. For the first time in 15 years, she touched his hand. "We all did what we could to survive," she said. That was enough. Tyler watched them from the hallway. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with Emily, just the two of them. The house was quiet. "Did I have a favorite food?" he asked. Emily smiled. "Macaroni with too much cheese. You used to call it gold noodles." He laughed. "I keep thinking," he said, "that memories will come back in a flood, but they don't. It's just flickers, a smell, a word, a flash." She nodded. "That's okay. Even one flicker is a beginning." Then he said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Will it hurt you if I'm never fully Caleb again?" Emily blinked. Then she took his hand. "No, because you're here. You're real. That's enough." He looked down, then up again, and then he said it. "Thanks, Mom." She didn't cry, not right away. But later, alone in her room, with Nino, the elephant, beside her, she wept into the pillow, shaking with gratitude and grief. Her son had called her Mom, and nothing else in the world mattered more. Meanwhile, Rachel and Naomi continued pursuing the broader case. The FAIR board members who had silenced complaints in 2005 were subpoenaed. Glenn Hendricks was formally charged with obstruction. A warrant was issued for Leonard Wallace, though his location remained unknown. But the case wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about rebuilding. Emily and Tyler began therapy together. They rebuilt slowly, like people learning a language they used to speak in another life. She showed him home videos. He cooked her a birthday breakfast. They laughed, sometimes awkwardly. They cried without needing reasons. He moved in, not into his old room, but into the guest room. A fresh start, but the mural in the hallway stayed, not as a memorial, but as a record. A timeline of pain and proof of persistence. One night, Emily asked if she could read to him again, like she used to. Tyler hesitated, then nodded. She pulled a worn book from the shelf, Where the Wild Things Are. Halfway through, Tyler smiled. "I remember this." She stopped. "You do?" He nodded. "The monster with the crown. I used to pretend I was him." Emily laughed through tears. "You were." He leaned back, eyes closing. "I think I'm ready," he said. "For what?" "To be home." 6 months later, the fair returned to Boise. The carousel stood in the same place. The lemonade stand had a new design, cleaner, brighter. The grounds were filled with color, laughter, and the hum of summer again. But for Emily and Tyler, it was something else entirely. A battlefield and a healing ground. They stood at the edge of the fair, side by side, no longer strangers, not just mother and son, survivors, stitching together a life that had been torn in half. Tyler held a cup of lemonade. He hadn't had one since he was 5. "This tastes like my childhood," he said quietly. Emily smiled. "You always said it was too sour." He sipped again. "Still is." They both laughed. Then Emily pointed toward the carousel. "Do you want to?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. They walked together. He chose the zebra again, just like before. As the music began to play, Emily stood beside the railing. Her eyes glistened. This was where she last saw him. And now, here he was again, alive, smiling, whole. The investigation had reached its limits. Glenn Hendricks accepted a plea deal. He admitted to suppressing information that could have led to Leonard Wallace's arrest in 2005. His health was failing, but his confession mattered. It closed a door. Leonard himself remained missing. A nationwide warrant was still active, but no credible sightings had surfaced. Some believed he was dead. Others believed he was hiding, living off the grid the same way he'd helped hide others. Mama June's journal painted her as a woman spiraling into delusion. Her obsession with rescuing children, particularly those with heterochromia, may have stemmed from her own traumatic past. No family ever came forward to claim her remains. The second boy in the photograph, still unidentified. But Rachel and Naomi hadn't given up. His photo was added to the National Registry of Endangered Youth. A new investigation opened in his name, even without one. As Rachel said, "We may be late, but we're not too late." Tyler chose not to return to his old name on paper. "Caleb is my beginning," he explained, "but Tyler is who I survived as." Emily respected that. He changed his legal name to Tyler Caleb Simmons, a hybrid of past and present, of pain and possibility. He began taking classes online, psychology, social work. He wanted to help other kids who had gone through what he did, and every Sunday he and Emily made pancakes, no matter what. One night Emily sat alone at her desk. She pulled out a fresh page and began to write, not in her journal, but a letter to her son. "Dear Caleb, I used to write to you every day. Even when the world told me not to hope, I wrote. I told myself you could feel it, like a signal in the dark. I want to believe that somehow those words reached you. I waited 20 years to see your face again. I missed birthdays, school photos. The first time you rode a bike, I missed it all. But I never missed loving you. That never stopped. You were 5 when I lost you, and 25 when I found you. But I want you to know something. I never stopped being your mom, not for a single second, and I'm so proud of who you became. Wherever this life takes you, know this. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not what happened to you. You are loved. Forever. Love, Mom." She folded the letter, tucked it into a shoebox filled with old drawings, faded toys, and the carousel photo. Then she lit a candle and let the silence say the rest. The final scene is quiet. Emily and Tyler standing at the exit of the fairgrounds. Behind them, music, laughter, lights. Before them, the road home. Emily glances back one last time and whispers, "You came back to me." Tyler reaches for her hand and says, "I never stopped trying." The camera pans upward to the sky, where a red balloon floats freely, rising weightless